Do you want to remain? For a moment, I thought I misheard her mother because she spoke so softly. Madison's arm was slung over my shoulders, her heels hanging from her fingers, and I was still holding her by the waist. Her breathing was irregular and slow, and her head weighed heavily on my chest. My heart struck my ribs hard. Tonight was not meant to be like this. The door was half open with Mrs. Carter's hand on it, allowing the soft illumination of streetlights from their Portland suburban driveway to enter. She gazed at me with weary blue eyes that were a combination of a worried mother and something I couldn't yet interpret. Remain? I asked again, my voice breaking. Like here. She gave Madison a quick glance before turning back to face me. It's nearly 2 in the morning, Ethan. You are worn out from driving, and my daughter is barely able to stand. I don't feel comfortable sending you out in this manner again. I took a deep breath. Not because of the chilly November air, but rather because of my anxiety and the way her words twisted in my chest. My shirt was sticking to my back. I should take a step back. I had been friends with Madison since our first year at Oregon State. Together, we had weathered group projects, heartbreaks, and subpar cafeteria fare. She was my best friend, but somewhere along the line, my feelings for her changed, quietly, without my consent. I can't stop thinking about her when I'm supposed to be sleeping. I didn't tell her. The timing was never perfect. She was in a relationship all the time, or I was trying to act as though I didn't mind. It was going to be easy tonight. To celebrate her new position at a marketing agency, our group of friends agreed to get together for cocktails in downtown Portland. She had jokingly said, "One last night of chaos before I become a responsible adult." However, things stopped feeling easy halfway between her 4th glass of tequila and the Uber driver missing his exit. At the bar, she had leaned too close to me while laughing too loudly, and her perfume blended with the scent of salt and lime. She had prodded my chest and said, "Ethan, you know that you're my favorite person?" I had said, trying to shrug it off while my face burned, "Yeah, you're drunk." Hours later, her hair tickled my jaw as I half-carried her up the path to her front door, her breath warm against my neck. My mind was constantly telling me to remain composed and to simply be the friend, the decent guy, or the safe man. Mrs. Carter stepped back and opened the door wider, saying, "Bring her in." The scent of laundry detergent and vanilla candles filled their home, instantly recognizable. I had spent countless college breaks here, including movie evenings, study sessions, and Thanksgiving when my parents took a plane to Florida without me. I always thought of this place as a second home. However, everything felt different tonight. Heavier. Madison and I crossed the threshold together. Something she muttered against my shoulder. I muttered, "Hey Mads, we're home." She laughed drowsily, and her head lolled. She muttered, "Told you, you're my favorite," before going limp once more. I clutched my chest. I made myself take a breath. Mrs. Carter closed the door behind us and said, "Let's get her to the couch." That's not how she's going up the stairs. Madison and I carefully lowered him onto the large gray sectional in the living room. In an attempt to be nice, I knelt down to place a pillow beneath her head and reposition her hair to avoid getting it stuck to her lip gloss. She opened her eyes for a brief moment. She muttered, "Ethan?" "Yes, I am in this exact spot." The tiniest smile curved her lips. "Please, don't go." My throat constricted. "I won't be leaving." She closed her eyes once again. Mrs. Carter seemed to be observing me. Her expression had softened by the time I looked up. "You always look after her," she said. I tried to brush it off with a shrug. She would reciprocate for me. Would she? She inquired, gazing at her daughter as if she could see into the future. Perhaps. Perhaps not in this manner. Since I had no idea what that meant, I concentrated on covering Madison's legs with the throw blanket. I also tucked the blanket beneath her chilly feet. "You haven't had any alcohol yet this evening?" Mrs. Carter inquired. "Just a soda," I replied. There must have been a designated driver. She gave a nod that seemed to validate her suspicions. "I'm happy you were there." For a moment, there was silence. The only noises were Madison's sluggish, erratic breathing and the quiet hum of the kitchen refrigerator. Wiping my sweaty palms on my slacks, I got to my feet. "I should leave now. It's late." She repeated it at that point. "Do you want to remain?" Between us, the words lingered. My mind flashed to the following images. Me lying in bed, replaying every moment of tonight and thinking of all the things I didn't say. Madison waking up terrified and bewildered, with no memory of how she got home, and me returning to the highway alone, my eyelids already heavy. I said, I don't want to encroach. You wouldn't be trespassing. She spoke in a polite but stern tone. You safely brought my daughter home. It's risky to travel at this hour when you're this exhausted. And to be honest, with a groan, she turned back to Madison. With you here, she seems more at ease. Every time I was reminded of how much I loved her, my heart did that strange twisting thing. She went on, I can arrange the guest room. If you feel more at ease, you can also remain on the opposite side of the couch. I simply don't want you driving at the moment. My responsible side realized she was correct. I had a dull ache at the base of my head from the long night, and my eyes hurt. I lived a good 40 minutes away, across town. If I merely fell asleep at the wheel for a moment, before my intellect had a chance to catch up, I heard myself say, okay, I'll remain. It's okay on the couch. One side of her mouth curled into a tiny smile. I'll get a blanket for you. I looked down at Madison as she left. Even though her lipstick was faded and her mascara was a touch smudged, she still managed to appear stunning in that untidy, genuine way, like someone who was unaware of how much room she occupied in my life. She couldn't hear me, but I mumbled, I meant it. I won't be leaving. Mrs. Carter returned carrying a pillow and a folded comforter. After giving them to me, she took a moment to examine my face. Ethan, may I ask you a question? Yeah. Her eyes were cautious and keen as they sought mine. Are you in love with her? I gasped. I almost let the comforter fall out of my hands. What? I stumbled. It's a straightforward inquiry, she stated, without being rude. You adore my daughter? I was certain Madison could hear my heart beating so loudly, even while she slept. My first reaction was to laugh it off, joke, evade, and say something like, well, she's my best friend. Lying seemed terrible, though, as I stood there in that cozy living room with Madison sleeping only inches from me and her mother's gaze fixed on my heart. I gulped, my mouth parched. Indeed. Yes, I do. It was there. Outside. No deflection, no jokes. The truth, suspended between us like a delicate glass ornament that may break if either of us took a deep breath. Mrs. Carter let out her breath slowly, as if she had been holding it for a while. I believed so, she murmured quietly. My heart pounded. Is that an issue? She gave a headshake. No, it's just nice to hear it at last. At last. I repeated. What do you mean? She took another look at Madison before turning back to face me. We'll speak in a moment. Take a seat. You appear to be on the verge of fainting. I fell onto the opposite side of the couch, far enough away to prevent myself from making the foolish move of reaching for Madison's hand, yet close enough to feel the warmth of her body beneath the blanket. In the recliner across from us, Mrs. Carter leaned forward and rested her elbows on her knees. She simply watched her kid sleep for a moment, her face gentle and sorrowful in a way I couldn't comprehend. This isn't the first time she's come home like this, she remarked softly. My chest heaved with the words. What do you mean? I inquired. Her eyes were steady as she gazed up at me. I believe you are unaware of a great deal about Madison. And Ethan, you'll need to determine how much of the truth you can take if you truly love her. Her words struck me like a blast of cold water. The extent to which you can tolerate the truth. With her eyelids pressed against her cheeks and her breathing irregular and slow, I gazed at Madison as she slept on the couch. This is how serene she appeared. There was nothing heavy or frightening about it. I muttered, I don't understand. What is the truth? As if she were picking her words carefully, Mrs. Carter stroked her temples for a moment while leaning back in the armchair. Ethan, I'm not attempting to frighten you, she added. However, you should be aware that this isn't just another, oops, I drank too much situation. There is a pattern. Additionally, patterns have significance. A pattern? I asked again. She gave Madison a nod. She has returned home in this manner 3 times this year. You don't typically bring her. My stomach turned over. For the 3rd time this year? I recalled all of the ambiguous texts she had sent me, such as, I'm so tired, or, last night was a blur lol. I emailed her memes, advised her to drink water, and joked back. I had no idea things had become this bad. What kept her from telling me? My voice was weaker than I intended when I asked. Mrs. Carter explained, because she doesn't want anyone to worry, especially you. I scowled. Why me? I nearly squirmed when she looked at me. You don't see it, do you really? Observe what? The amount of room you occupy in her life. I gave a headshake. She is my closest pal. I'm simply there. As if she were there to support me. Mrs. Carter laughed a little, without humor. Honey, she talks about you the way she talks about everyone else. My chest constricted. She mentions me? At all times, she replied. And not just, Ethan helped me move, or, oh, Ethan's funny. She talks about feeling secure in your presence. How you hear her. How you treat her as though she's more than the disaster she believes herself to be. I took a deep breath. I was unsure of how to handle that. I didn't know, I said. You obviously didn't. You guys never do. She gave a slight shake of her head. However, it's not the only issue. She gave Madison another look, and her piercing expression changed to one of vulnerability. She said, when she was 13, her dad left. You were aware of that? Yes, I said. She made reference to it once. She dislikes discussing it with others. Her mother responded, she doesn't like talking about a lot of things. However, that does not imply that they disappeared. Imagining Madison age 13, seeing her father take off with a bag, I took another look at her. My gut ached at the thought. Mrs. Carter continued. She began pursuing people who made her feel as though she had to earn love. Both hot and cold guys. Men who vanished for a week and then reappeared as if nothing had occurred. She also always made a greater effort. I always thought they would stay together if she could just be a little more attractive, a bit more entertaining, a little more, whatever. Even though I didn't know these individuals, I felt a keen, boiling rage surge within of me. I said, that's messed up. Indeed. It is, she said. A few months ago, the last one. Tyler. She uttered his name as if it were bitter. The name was familiar to me. I had seen images. Even before I had a motive, I had detested him from the first moment. He betrayed her. Time and again, she said. Made her feel crazy for asking him questions. When she requested the bare minimum, it was said that she was clingy. In my lap, my hands clenched into fists. Did he ever harm her? My jaw was clenched as I asked. She hesitated. She said, not the way you're thinking. However, absolutely. She was harmed by him. A great deal. With my mouth clenched, I gazed at the floor, attempting to picture Madison going through that without informing me. I felt ill from it. She believed she could help him. Or tend to herself, Mrs. Carter added. And she declared that she was finished when it all blew up, and she eventually left. Done with affection. Men are over. Feelings are over. I recalled the evening she had contacted me and stated that she wished to reset her life. I had assumed it was merely a dramatic manner of discussing a breakup. She added quietly, and that's when the drinking got worse. She doesn't always do it at night. She continues to function and work. When does she feel too much, though? When she's reminded of him by something. Or her father. Or anything. She gestured toward tonight's empty tequila-shaped hole. This is our final destination. I truly gave Madison my full attention. The small furrow between her eyebrows. Her slightly curled fingers gave the impression that she was grasping onto something while she slept. I should have seen, I said. You have no responsibility to fix her, Mrs. Carter remarked kindly. Perhaps not, I replied. But she is important to me. A great deal. And none of this was visible to me. Because she wanted you not to. She lowered her voice. She's afraid you'll notice all the mess and leave. I gave that some thought. It seemed absurd to think that she was scared of losing me. It seemed as though someone had changed the plot in a way that my mind wasn't prepared for. She believes you're. Mrs. Carter paused, trying to find the correct phrase. All right. Too nice to match the baggage she bears. I let out a brief, bitter laugh. Believe me, I'm not very good at anything. I have a mess of my own. Yes, she replied. However, you're steady. You arrive. You fulfill your commitment. Tonight, you were sober. You took her home in your car. You remained. I reflected on all the occasions I'd wanted to express my feelings to her, but refrained since I didn't want to destroy our relationship. I persuaded myself it was okay every time I saw her grinning with someone else. I responded softly. So she drinks to forget them. To put Tyler out of mind. Her father. That's how guys are. On occasion, Mrs. Carter remarked. And occasionally, I believe she drinks to block out the fact that she wishes you shared her feelings. I jerked my head up. What? She extended a hand. Please understand that I'm not implying that she told me a grand, dramatic love story. Not even she acknowledges it to herself. However, I am her mother. When you text her, I can see how excited she becomes. The way she becomes anxious when you are silent. She always seems to include you in her discussions regarding your future. My heart was beating so loudly that it nearly overpowered everything else. She said, she loves you, Ethan, deeper than she wishes to acknowledge. And she's afraid of that, due to the fact that those she loves frequently depart. I turned back to Madison. She spoke while sleeping, as shown by the little movement of her lips. I tried to listen by leaning in a little. She said, so faintly that I almost thought I was dreaming, don't go. I clenched my chest. I whispered, I'm right here. Blindly, her fingers moved beneath the cover. I slid my hand under without thinking, and hers touched mine. She had a firm but feeble hold. While she was still asleep, she muttered, please don't leave me like he did. I felt every muscle in my body tense. I gave Mrs. Carter a quick glance. Her eyes were glimmering with what appeared to be tears as she watched us. She muttered, that's what she said the last time, too. Then, she was referring to Tyler. The weight of everything pushing down on me caused me to swallow forcefully. Mrs. Carter said, I believe she's referring to you tonight. The space seemed more intimate, warmer, heavier. Despite Madison's inability to sense the promise in her hand, I gave it a light squeeze. I'm not him, I muttered. I'm not going anywhere. For a long while, Mrs. Carter examined me as if gauging the veracity of what I had said. I hope you're correct, she murmured. For her benefit, as well as yours. Slowly, she got to her feet. I'm about to go upstairs. The restroom is down the hall if you need anything. The kitchen is filled with water. And I'm grateful for bringing her home. Obviously, I said. She turned away and then stopped. Ethan, yes. She whispered, be honest if you truly love her. Alongside her, with oneself. People are not protected by secrets. They merely postpone the suffering. She then proceeded to the stairs, leaving me alone with Madison's hand around mine, the gentle illumination of the lamp, and the calm hum of the house. Something settled within of me as I gazed at her sleeping face. I was unable to change her past. I was unable to remove Tyler, her father, or the fragments they had left behind. However, I could remain. However, the question I was most terrified of was the one that kept coming up in my mind. None of this was there when she woke up. Is she still going to want me here? Someone was moaning when I woke up. For a moment, I was unsure of my whereabouts. There was a weight against my arm. The blanket had a subtle lavender scent, and the couch underneath me was too plush to be mine. Then everything returned quickly. Madison, her mother. Are you in love with her? The cups of tequila were empty. The drive. Madison's fingers had encircled mine while she slept. I turned my head and blinked the blur from my eyes. The blanket had dropped down to her waist, but she was still sleeping on the opposite side of the couch. She was gripping her head as if it were going to fall off. Her hair was a mess, and mascara was smudged under her eyes. Oh God, she muttered. Why is my brain against me? The sound nearly made me chuckle, but it got stuck in my throat. Good morning, I murmured. Her eyes popped open. After a moment of staring at the ceiling, she gently turned to face me. Ethan, she asked in a gruff, perplexed voice. Wait, what are you? She looked down at our hands. We continued to hold on. I must have moved closer at some time throughout the night. As if it were the most natural thing in the world, our fingers were intertwined beneath the covers. My neck began to heat up. I pulled my hand back softly and muttered, sorry. Without her, my skin felt colder. She tried to put things together by blinking a few times. She scowled and asked, did we? Has something occurred? I was struck in the chest by the question. No, I blurted out. Not at all like that. At the bar, you were really inebriated. You were driven home by me. I stayed on the couch since your mom didn't want me to drive back exhausted. That's all. She loosened her shoulders slightly. Oh, all right. Her jaw then tensed. God, I apologize. Once more? I continue to do this. What are you doing? I inquired. She pushed her fingers to her temples and winced. Being this. She made a gesture to herself as if it clarified everything. You mean being human? I said softly. She laughed without amusement. I want a refund if this is human. I slightly sat up. What do you recall from last night? Thinking, she squinted. I recall the bar. The tunes. A drink was spilled on my sneakers. You're shouting for me to get some water. She hesitated. I recall relying on you in the vehicle. Perhaps. Additionally, your hoodie smells like coffee and clean laundry. Her face flushed. It's just flashes after that. The front door? Mom's face. Then nothing. It's just dark. Slowly, I nodded. You seem to have lost your mind. Her eyes were filled with shame as she gazed at me. Did I say something foolish? Indeed. You pleaded with me not to abandon you the way he did. As if it were the only thing stopping you from collapsing, you clutched my hand. I confessed my love for you to your mother because of you. I tried to keep my tone light and instead added, you said I'm your favorite person. But it doesn't count because you said that while intoxicated as well. A tiny smile tugged at her mouth. All right. It remains true. Once more, my chest made that unpleasant flip motion. There were footsteps in the corridor, and Mrs. Carter, who was already wearing jeans and a cozy blue sweater, showed up by the living room door with a coffee mug. All right, you're awake, she said. How are you, troublemaker? Madison moaned. Mom. Too loud. She answered. I haven't even said anything yet. On the sofa table are water and Tylenol. And, just in case, there's a garbage can close by. Madison put one hand over her face. She muttered, I'm never drinking again. For at least 2 weeks, I think. I grinned. It's progress. Mrs. Carter's gaze shifted to me, and we exchanged a brief glance. A glance that indicated we both remembered everything she had told me the previous evening. My heart began to race. Ethan, if you want some fresh coffee, it's in the kitchen, she remarked. I can also prepare you a meal. It's likely that you should eat before driving. I got up and tried not to think about how my body hurt from sleeping in pants. That sounds great. Thank you. I answered. From behind her hand, Madison peered out. She said, You stayed? With a hurtful tone of surprise. Yes, I answered quietly. Your mother didn't want me to drive back at such a late hour. I thus crashed here. Oh, she bit her lower lip. Thank you for not abandoning me. I stared at her. I promised not to. Her gaze flitted, as if she had a query she wasn't quite ready to ask. I cleared my throat. I'm going to get that coffee. I was surrounded by the aroma of freshly brewed coffee in the kitchen. The white cabinetry and the small magnets on the refrigerator were illuminated by the sunlight that came through the window above the sink. Even though it was a typical, comfortable morning, I didn't feel at all normal. Mrs. Carter softened her voice and poured me a mug. Did you get any sleep? She inquired. A little, I said. Couch isn't bad. She asked. And how are you feeling? But I could see she wasn't referring to my back. My gaze was fixed on my coffee, as if I were standing on the brink of something enormous and couldn't see the bottom. She nodded as if she was too familiar with that emotion. She said, You don't have to make all of your decisions right now. However, don't act as though nothing occurred. Not with oneself. Not with her. I said, When she's acting this way, I don't want to push her. You will not, she answered. She needs time to wake up, feel ill, and even despise herself before realizing that the world isn't ending. Her gaze grew softer. However, you two will need to speak shortly. Really discuss. I understand, I replied. For a little period, we were silent save for the slight clink of her spoon on her own cup. She said, I have to leave in a little while. This morning, I'm filling in for a colleague. For a little while, will you be all right here? I took a swallow. You believe I can handle her? She answered without hesitation. Yes. That's the main idea. That trust weighed heavily on my shoulders. It steadied me in an odd manner. All right, I replied. I'll see to it that she has some food and consumes water. Well done. After a moment of hesitation, she said, and maybe, consider what you want to say to her. At first, she might laugh it off. She might stop talking. However, she requires a partner who doesn't mind her mess. Be honest first if that's going to be you. After giving my arm a single squeeze, she moved on into the corridor. Madison was sitting up when I returned to the living room with my coffee. Her hair knotted in an untidy knot on top of her head, and a blanket wrapped around her like a cocoon. She was biting a slice of dry bread like cardboard while a half-empty glass of water sat on the table. She appeared diminutive, at risk. Still, she was there. Hey, I murmured. Hey, she said. We gazed at one another for a moment. All of the things we didn't say made the air between us feel heavy. My mother left? She inquired. Yes, I said. Work. She breathed out slowly. Fantastic. I can now completely pass away from shame without anyone noticing. I remarked, You did nothing that I haven't seen you do before. apart from possibly dozing off while standing in the doorway. That was novel. There was a little smile that appeared. You mean I was that awful? Very much, I replied. She stared at the ceiling while leaning her head back against the couch. I apologize if I caused any strangeness. You didn't, I blurted out. You never have to say sorry for asking for help, Madison. Never. She gave me a very close look at that moment, as if she were looking for a lie on my face. She whispered, Why are you always like this? Like what? So good. Her voice trembled slightly. You help me when I make poor decisions. I'm driven home by you. You remain. I never feel like I'm too much with you. You simply turn up. With my heart thumping once again, I gulped. I remarked, Perhaps because you're worth coming for. She opened her mouth as if to reply, but the words were stopped in mid-sentence. The silence seemed both fragile and weighty as we sat there. Her eyes fell to her hands as she muttered, Ethan, did my mom say something strange to you last night? My heart leaped. What do you mean? I inquired. Madison remarked, When she's under stress, she gets a little talkative. She frets excessively about me. She occasionally says inappropriate things. I simply don't want her to burden you with my problems. I remembered everything her mother had said. Regarding her father. About Tyler. Regarding the alcohol. About Madison's concern for me. I responded cautiously. She didn't dump anything. We simply spoke. What about me? She said, her tone becoming more tense. Yes, I said. She is your mother. She is concerned. That is typical. Madison's mouth tightened. What did she say, too? I thought I was standing on that precipice once more. It was this. I could tell a falsehood. Let's say we discussed her work and her pride in it. Maintain the same level of safety. Or I could follow her mother's advice. Tell the truth. I answered slowly. She told me some stuff about your ex. Concerning Tyler. Regarding his treatment of you. Madison's expression froze. Oh, I continued as my throat constricted. And she told me that you don't always let people see how much you're really hurting. Because you fear your loved ones may abandon you. Something flashed in her eyes. Fear, rage, or both. She was not entitled to. I interrupted her before she could erect a wall so high I couldn't reach over it, saying softly, Madison. She asked me a question as well. She took a swallow. What query? When I inhaled, it felt as though it scraped my lungs. I said, She asked me if I love you. The room fell silent. Madison's eyes widened as if she hadn't heard correctly. She muttered, What did you say? I was certain she could hear how my heart was racing. She gazed at me as if we were in a frozen state. Her knuckles were white as she twisted the blanket's edge. As if she wasn't sure she wanted the response, she whispered again, And what did you say? I took a swallow. I was honest with her, I said. Yes, I said to her. Yes, I do. Madison blinked. Once. Twice. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. At last, she managed to say, You told my mom you love me? Yes. I replied, making myself look into her eyes. Because I do. For a long time, I have. Out in the open like that. The words felt enormous and terrible. Don't make jokes. Don't hide. Simply put, real. She exhaled tremblingly and turned her head away, her eyes sparkling. That's not enough to say. When I feel too much, I drink too much. I choose the wrong men. I push the appropriate folks away. You shouldn't be in love with that. I said, I don't love that you're in pain. However, I adore you. You all. The untidy portions. The loud chuckle. The way you cry during puppy ads. The way you contact me at 2 in the morning because you need someone to reassure you that you're not alone after having a nightmare about your future. What now? Her gaze jerked back to me. She muttered, You deserve someone normal. An individual who isn't this damaged. With more conviction than ever, I said, Stop determining what I deserve for myself. You're not allowed to do that. As if the words had struck a raw nerve, she winced. I'm attempting to keep you safe. From what? I inquired. From adoring you? Madison, I have some news. A long time ago, that ship set sail. She let a tear fall down her cheek. Frustrated, she used the back of her palm to wipe it away. She remarked, This is precisely what I didn't want. This is not how I wanted you to see me. It becomes so severe that I didn't want you to know. Because people leave once you find out. They always depart. I'm not them. I murmured quietly. Her eyes gleamed as she shook her head. Now you say that. But what if I make a mistake again? When I mess things up because I'm nervous, jealous, and insecure? What if you have to pull me home again after a night like last night? You will get resentful of me. You'll begin to feel burdened by me. After that, you'll leave. To force her to look at me, I shifted from my side of the sofa to the edge of the coffee table and sat directly in front of her. Observe me, I said. After a moment of resistance, she eventually raised her eyes. I said, I'm not saying I'll never get frustrated. I'm not saying that everything will be simple or flawless. Real life isn't like that. However, I swear that when times are tough, I won't go away. I will not penalize you for your scars. And I won't act like you're too much just because you have strong emotions. Her breath caught. She said, You have no idea how broken I am on the inside. Slowly, I nodded. You're correct. I'm not an expert in everything. I have no idea how it must have felt to see your father go. I'm not fully aware of anything Tyler stated to you. I'm not sure what's going through your mind when you reach for another drink rather than a hand. Shame flashed across her face as she turned away once more. But I'd like to know, I added. If I may, not to correct you, not to be heroic, merely to be present, to sit through the unpleasant portions with you, to be the person you call rather than the one you keep hidden. There was silence between us. Uneven breaths ascended and sank in her chest. With a slightly lowered voice, I said, And if you don't feel the same, if I'm just your friend and you don't want anything to change, I'll respect that. I'll accept my emotions and deal with them. If you don't match them, I won't punish you. Sharply, her gaze returned to mine. You don't think I feel anything? I was honest when I said, I don't know what you feel. I've never heard from you. She laughed unsteadily. Yes, all right. That's what I'm really excellent at. Not disclosing information to others. Then perhaps begin right now, I suggested softly. She looked at me as if I were urging her to leap off a precipice. In the car last night, she muttered. I recall that you assured me that you would not be leaving. I said, I meant it. And I recall. She took a swallow. I recall saying something along the lines of please don't abandon me like he did. My heart clenched. Indeed, you did. Her eyes filled again, and her cheeks reddened. I was referring to my father, she stated. Tyler, too. And all the guys who made me feel inadequate. However, when I said it, a piece of me, she stopped talking and briefly covered her mouth with her hand. What part of you? I asked quietly. I meant you in part, she said. Since the day we became friends, I've been waiting for you to go. I couldn't help but think that he couldn't stay forever. He can't possibly keep picking me. Not until he sees everything. Something exploded within of me. Madison, I exhaled. She gave a long, tremulous sigh. I'm fond of you, she declared. It goes without saying that I like you. My favorite person is you. However, it goes beyond that, and it has for some time. I also detested it. I detested the fact that I desired more from you than just friendship, because they leave when I want them to. So I made an effort to bury it. I dated men who weren't the right fit for me. You'll never see me like that, I assured myself. And it would simply end like everything else if you did. Now, quietly and steadily, tears streamed down her cheeks. Her final words were a whisper. I didn't want to ruin us. It wasn't until my eyesight became blurry that I realized my own eyes were wet. I remarked, You haven't ruined anything. The greatest thing in my life is you. Broken and incredulous, she laughed. When I'm crying over some random commercial tonight, you're going to regret saying that. Then, with a tiny smile tugging at my lips, I answered, I'll cry with you. She looked at me as though she was attempting to commit every line to memory as she wiped her face once more. I'm afraid, she said, of this, of us, of what would occur if we tried and failed. I'm afraid that if I include you in my pandemonium, you'll wake up and be angry with me. I replied, I'm afraid too. I'm afraid I'll make a mistake. Say something incorrectly. When you're having a rough day, you don't know how to help. If I continue to act like I'm just your friend, or if I confess my love to you and you decide it's too much, I'm afraid I'll lose you. Her gaze grew softer. You're smitten with me. I laughed breathlessly. I thought that part should have been pretty clear by now. She gave me a prolonged look. Then, very slowly, she extended her hand and grasped mine. The hold was deliberate, yet her fingers were warm and slightly unsteady. Get up. All right, she muttered. Then let's share our fear. My heart struck my ribs hard. I began, unsure of my voice. Is that you? Are you saying? Her voice trailed off as she said, I'm saying I want to try. I cannot guarantee that I will be simple. I can't guarantee that when I'm afraid, I won't lose it or push you away. But I can assure you that rather than excluding you, I will make an effort to let you in. That rather than drinking myself unconscious, I'll talk. That if you do, I'll fight for this. I gave her hand a firm squeeze that grounded us both. I remarked, I've been mentally battling for you for years. I would adore the opportunity to actually do it. She let out a little, damp laugh. You're really corny. Yes, I said. Now you're stuck with it. She glanced at me, her gaze briefly dipping to my mouth before quickly rising again. My heart leaped. I began, then paused, saying, Can I? Or is that going too quickly? Thinking, she bit her lower lip. After that, she leaned forward until our foreheads nearly met. That's me, she muttered. Nothing will feel a bit too quick. However, I would like you to. I only needed that. I carefully and slowly raised my free hand, allowing her every opportunity to yank away. When she didn't, I ran my fingertips over her jaw to remove the final trace of tears. After that, I leaned closer and kissed her. It was a gentle kiss. Kind. Not a single fireworks or dramatic song. Her hand tightening on my fingers as if she were terrified I would disappear if she let go, and the warm, genuine sensation of her mouth against mine. I remained motionless. I refrained from pushing. I simply remained there and let her lead the way. She leaned slightly into it after a moment. Her eyes were brighter when we eventually withdrew, as if a heavy object had cracked and allowed light to enter. That was, she muttered. All right, I said. She gave a nod. Indeed, better than good. We sat there breathing the same nervous air, hands clasped together, foreheads resting on each other. After a minute, she murmured, so, with a little smile on her lips. After this, are you still planning to drive home? Or, thinking of her mother at the door last night made me grin. I said, only if you want me to. If not, she concluded for me with the same words, but in a different order. Would you like to stay? Fuller and softer. I looked her in the eyes, carrying the same burden as the night before, but this time it felt like something I had chosen to bear. Yes, I said. I want to remain in her home, throughout her life, in whatever followed. As if she knew all of that without my having to speak it aloud, she clasped my hand. The future felt both lovely and frightening at the same moment for the first time in a long time. And we were walking into it together for the first time ever.
If you felt good in this story, stay with us, like, subscribe, and join me in the next one. Thank you.